Hey, I just wanted to make that quick video to show you the lab that you missed. So let me just go through that. So we did Unit 3, right? So you have that manual, or I sent it to you by email. When you do Unit 3, feel free to read all of that. The pre-lab activity, you can find them in MS Teams, so make sure you go to MS Teams. It's somewhere. Let me see if I can show it to you. Oh. Yes, so you should be able to see that. If you go to our MS Teams and you go to lab information, you go to all the way to the top, you see Unit 3 links. Make sure you did the Unit 2 also. If I don't gather anything from that, I just want you to do it. It's all about covering 111 material that you should know. And then the Unit 3, it's all about the pre-exercises. So you have this one and this one. You can do the exercise 3.8 after you're done with the lab if you want to. But here, for the exercise 3.2 here, you have to come up with a ratio there. And for that, I really want you to think about the Punnett square, right? So if you draw Punnett square, and for that, let me actually open whiteboard. Oh, I guess I need to open and do it in MS Teams. Up. So let's just keep it there. I don't know what that one is. Let's do this one. Yeah, that's not. Let's create a new one. Okay, so here, if you draw your Punnett square, and in there you draw PQ, because that individual was PQ heterozygous, so the gametes can be either P or Q. Same thing for there. The gametes are the individual heterozygous because we follow Hardy-Weinberg. And when you follow Hardy-Weinberg, you assume all of those things. Look at the lecture slides for that. You assume all those things to be true, which are usually not in population. You assume there is no mutation, no migration, no selection, no pairing, the mating is completely random, the population is large, all of that. So we're going to try to do that and show what it would look like, because when it is Hardy-Weinberg, oops, made a mistake. When it is Hardy-Weinberg, there is no evolution. Oh yeah, and this should be Q here. I made a mistake. Let's see if I can erase that. Look at that technology. I'm drawing with my mouse, so I have to apologize. Remember how we do things? We put always the recessive allele first, the dominant allele first, sorry. So there's a P, so I put P, P, and then I enter P here and Q there. Since that's a Q, I put it in the second spot, Q on the first part here, or second, doesn't matter, there's another Q, and then I fill in P first here, right? So when you look at that, in the case of our fish here, we have green fish and recessive fish, RR, right? You can replace P by R if you want, and Q by VOR, right? So when you think about it, since R is dominant, P is dominant, those three here will look red, whereas the QQ here will look green, right? So now that you know that for a fact, the ratio you would expect in the population under Hardy-Weinberg should be 3 red to 1 green, right? So for the second page, you are going to work with those equations. I'll let you walk through that. You have to use the equation, and you can write those here in terms of math. So if you were to write the number 2 here, the frequency of homozygous dominant genotype, the dominant genotype homozygous is PP, that's a genotype in parentheses, right, is 0.39. They ask you what is P, the frequency of the dominant allele is P, right? So they ask you to store that. You also know that this from here is equal to p squared. So they tell you p squared equal 0.49, p equal square root of 0.49. And that's all you need to do for this here, for number 2. So don't forget that sometimes you need to use the equation they show you here, and sometimes you ask you to just use that p squared. You can square it to get p, right? And that is going to teach you how to fill those tables afterwards. So I let you explore all that. Remember that p plus q equal 1 is the allelic frequencies, whereas p squared plus 2pq plus q squared equal 1 are the genotypic frequencies. It's important to remember and differentiate the two. I will say one thing about that table here. About that table here, I would say one thing. The reason why we start with, so you can do that at home, you can find beads or little things, you just need a lot of them, so you make a population that's 3 to 1, because when they say gather random sample of 10 fish from your stock, the stock population is the one we talked about just here, the stock population with a ratio of 3 to 1, right? So to make that ratio, you just take 75 beads of one color and 25 beads of another color, right? Red and green if you can. But the one that have 75 of them, those are the dominant one. Then you're going to just take 10 of them randomly. You're going to count how many red, you put them in the red, and how many green are in there. And then you calculate q squared. Where you calculate q squared, it comes from this table here. Because q squared is the genotype here that matches the phenotype, you know they are green, and only the individuals that are green, they all have QQ as alleles. Compared to the red individuals, you don't know if they're homozygous or heterozygous. Because you know that, you can find q squared. By the way, this the Punnett square, you have a q square, that's here. You have the 2pq, that's the diagonal, right? 2 times pq, and then you have p squared, right? So p squared plus 2pq plus q squared, that equation that is there, is your Punnett square, okay? So now that you have this and you know q squared is equal to the frequency of green individuals, phenotype the recessive in your population, if you had 3 greens for 7 reds out of the 10, 3 divided by, so if you have 3 green and 7 red, you just need to do 3 divided by 7 plus 3, the total number of individuals, so 10, that's equal to 0.3. And that's q squared. So the number of green divided by the total individual, that gives you q squared. When you square root, you get q. 1 minus q equal p, coming from 1 equal p plus q. It's coming from this, p plus q equal 1. If you have q, you can find p. Minus q on either side, so 1 minus q, p plus q minus q equal p, so p equal 1 minus q. And then you can find p squared, you square that, and 2pq, 2 times q and p, and you can do it for all your individual thing. Then in the class, we pulled it together, so we had 9 groups. For that, you can either ask your classmate to give you the numbers here, and you can do the calculation yourself and answer the question, or you can just ask them the whole table. It's up to you. But that's a class data, so you cannot do it alone. Then we did it again, but this time, when you selected which of the, you remember here, when you selected each 3 fish at random, each generation you eat 3 fish and then you restock from your stock population. When we did that, we were randomly doing it. Whereas here, look at the difference. You will eat 3 green fish, which means you're going to pressure selection against the recessive trait, a recessive allele and phenotype. So then we should see Q going down. So this is a violation of Hardy-Weinberg, selection of prediction, of selection of pressure selection against the green. So you should see the allele frequency of green going down. You have a class result, and then you will graph the whole thing. You can ask someone in the class, the MS team, to share the graph of the class to see it, and you should notice that in that graph, you should have something like this. These have the frequencies, these have the generation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And if you draw P, this is 0.5, that's 1, that's 0. P may be there and stable. If you draw, well, let me actually make the green green, so Q. And if you draw P, the red one, you have a converse, right? Because that's 0.6, so it should be 0.4, right? It's like that, right? But was when you draw them with selection, so that's the P under selection, so we're going to call it PS. You would maybe start here, but then you will see an increase of P through regeneration, and conversely, you should see a diminution for Q because you kill them preferentially, right? So Q may start over there, but then it will start to drop. And you see the change in allele frequency through time. That means there is evolution. Evolution is changes of allele frequency through time. So here you go. When you have to answer the data, the chi-square presented in class, you can try to do it yourself. I will tell you that expected are 3 to 1, right? Of the ratios. But yeah, and you can do the observable, like that's sort of the statistic. It's the chi-square, to be clear. It's out to have a statistical data telling you that those two lines, the orange and the green, are different or are not the same, sorry, as the two flat lines. The two flat lines is under Hardy-Weinberg hypothesis, and the two other lines is when it's violated. So the hypothesis of Hardy-Weinberg is the null hypothesis when there's no effect of evolution, there's no effect of allele frequencies, of selection of anything on frequency change, of allele frequency changes, whereas selection is the alternative hypothesis. So we're going to see if we can fail or successfully reject the null hypothesis. And the null hypothesis are the orange and green line here that I'm changing are the same as the flat lines. And that chi-square helps you to have the statistical data for that. Not super essential for the class. But yeah, that's a rundown of the lab. You have a genetic drift exercise, please do it. And yeah, you can do the paper muff exercise as well if you want. It's an alternative. It's similar. We did something similar. Question. I don't gather. Especially the review questions. I don't gather that. However, you're gonna have a quiz on Unit 3, and that quiz I'll provide it to you in the email. But here it is. So make sure you are reviewing this, and make sure as we are going through the lab, you can get to that. That's really important. But beyond that, yeah, that's how you're going to catch up with it. So for you, I would love to see, because you're making it up, you weren't there, I would love you to share with me your work. So take a picture of what you did at home, send me the review questions, or show me next time in lab when you show up your review questions answered. And that would help me, and I will give you the points back, if that makes sense. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So I hope this is going to help you in going through the lab and get ready for our next lab. It is going to be, I don't think we have something to prep for that, because our next lab is Unit 4, and Unit 4 is hominin evolution and histology. You don't have pre-lab work to do, so just come ready to discuss bones and manipulate bones. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You take care. I hope this video was useful.